Thank you and welcome along to the Speaking Up for Trees teacher training for secondary school teachers. And thank you to those who are watching this recording. We know it's hard to find the time to fit this in, but hopefully it's a really worthwhile experience. And I would also like to say a huge welcome along to the Young Tree Champions programme. My name is Katie Rafferty and I previously worked in secondary education and joined the Tree Council last year. And I am really excited about the schools who have come on board this year and joined the Young Tree Champions all across the UK. We've really got a great number of schools who have joined us in areas where we haven't had as many before. We've got a whole range of age groups, and we're really excited with some of the project ideas and the excellent applications that you submitted with the exciting things that you're planning this year. Our motto at the Tree Council is to be a force for nature, and that is what you are enabling your young people and pupils to do. And it is so important. We have already seen shared with that hashtag on social media a lot of the things that are going on in your schools at the minute, the planting of the trees and the hedgerow whips that you've received, but also other activities that you've already started to do, other outdoor learning experiences. And it really does show that it all starts with you guys, really. You inspire your young people to be a force for nature, and they take that on into their adult life. And we know that sometimes it is harder to do with our secondary pupils as they get older, they get to that teenage stage. But the activities that you've been sharing with us via email, in the club space, on social media, really show that you are absolutely helping to tackle that nature crisis by helping your pupils to be a force for nature. So thank you for all that you are doing and continuing to do. You will know only too well the reasons behind our Young Tree Champions programme, because you will see them firsthand in your schools. So we started this back in 2020, and it was inspired is probably the wrong word, but it was fueled in some ways by the COVID crisis. That had such an impact on mental health for a lot of the population, but particularly children and young people. And it really influenced their decisions about engaging with others, about getting outside. And we've seen through research the impact that connectedness with nature can have. And we really want to try and tackle that through access to nature and connections with nature. As well, knowledge, skills gap, awareness, opportunities of careers in industries, of working outdoors. A lot of young people really enjoy being outside and don't realise how many careers there are in that area. Also, with their passion for nature, not having the knowledge to support nature, to understand the impact of it, the impact it has on us, on the planet. And we're really trying to tackle that through the projects that you guys are running in school and the resources we're providing. And we will be enhancing and providing more resources as the year goes on and into coming years. Now this year we have got something a little bit different taking place. So our Speaking Up competition is an annual competition that has been run since we started the programme, and it is incredibly popular. It is incredibly successful. And when I went into my first schools, when I started with the Tree Council, one of the things that the pupils spoke to me about first was the previous year's competition that they entered, that they took part in, the workshops that they took part in at their school. And it was a memory that stuck with them of somebody coming in, working with them to help them speak up for nature and building their passion, their confidence, their self-esteem. And it impacted not only the teaching staff able to see these changes, but the pupils understood those changes that had occurred in them during those workshops. So they're so valuable, and I'm really glad that you've signed up for it. This year, we are going to have a Force for Nature Expo. Now, in previous years, we've had Force for Nature festivals. You can see an image of one of our banners for it on the screen there. And due to COVID, these were virtual experiences. This year, we get the exciting opportunity to do a live expo, and we would like our Speaking Up competition winners to be a part of that. So as part of the prize, there will be vouchers, there will be certificates, but in addition this year, there will be the opportunity to speak up for nature at our Force for Nature Expo. That means that the winners will be provided with support for travel and accommodation to come to our expo that's taking place on the 15th of June in Birmingham. We will have a national event where we'll have all sorts of guests, other schools, other teachers, and we would love the winner to be able to be part of that, to share with everybody there and everybody online, because there will be an online version of it shown to everybody who couldn't make it, to share their powerful words about nature. So I'll give you a little bit more information about how we went to that towards the end, but I am not the expert in all matters to do with this competition. The competition is run for us by Speakers Trust. It's facilitated by them, fantastic experienced facilitators who will go into your schools to deliver your workshops. So Jenny is with us today. She's going to share why oracy is so important, why this is something the Speakers Trust feels so passionately about, and how the workshops are going to work in your school, the format of them, and the next steps for you, what it is that you're going to be doing. So I will hand over now to Jenny, who will take it away with the details about the Speakers Trust workshops themselves.
Thanks so much, Katie, and welcome everybody to this recording if you're watching it at home, and to you, Victoria. Thank you so much for attending. So I'm from Speakers Trust, and we are a charitable organisation, and it's our passion to make sure that young people all across the country have their voices heard, have their opinions listened to, have their beliefs expressed, and build the confidence to enable them to do that. So in a nutshell, that's what the workshop involves. It involves using practical tips, techniques, and strategies in order to build the confidence of your pupils at secondary school level to be able to stand up at the end of the day and deliver a short speech of about 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes long on the topic of speaking up for trees and nature. So it has to have an environmental slant. We don't find that a very difficult ask for this generation, who all seem to care very passionately about climate change and our planet, and rightfully so. So let me tell you why we think at Speakers Trust oracy matters. We know that it's a key functional skill. Being able to communicate how you feel, what you think, and your opinions and ideas is really important, not just at school level, but also going through your life. It really increases young people's self-confidence if they can articulate their ideas succinctly and purposefully and reach an audience of not just their peers, but of adults as well. It enhances their speaking and listening skills. Listening is really undervalued, and it's a fantastic skill to be able to build. And some of our activities are specially tailored in order to help achieve being better listeners, which will input into your classroom situations as well once we're gone, which is fantastic. It really creates a positive mental health through positive self-identity. So if you feel good about standing up and speaking, and you feel valued and heard, your opinion of yourself increases, your self-esteem increases, your confidence goes up, and that has a really positive effect on your identity, your ability to be expressive, and also then a byproduct of that is that your mental health and attitude to yourself increases, because if you are feeling like you need to express something, we're going to give you the tools to do that. So even outside this competition, the skills that your teenage students are going to learn are going to be invaluable in classroom situations, in their social situations, and even in their home situations, all of which are very, very valuable for this age group in particular. Being able to articulate your thoughts and ideas clearly and with passion and courage and conviction is a really important skill. Not being afraid to say what you think, and learning how to back that up with a good argument and some interesting facts and statistics really helps empower people. And we show them during the workshop that it can influence social change, particularly with this competition. The idea that we sometimes feel massively overwhelmed by the climate crisis, and sometimes young people can feel like, oh, there's so little we can do about it, but actually speaking about it, making sure that we're raising awareness about it and getting more and more people to have it as part of their daily conversations is really important. And that's what this competition allows young people to do. It makes them realize that what they care about are things that we should all be caring about, and it gives them the tools to share their cares and ideas. And that's why it's a really powerful tool for learning. We often find at the end of a session, when the children are using their feedback forms and feeding back on how they feel about the day, that's one of the things that comes back to us. the feedback in terms of their positivity, their confidence building, and their self-belief has massively increased. And those three things really allow them to go forward and think about how they can impact social change on a bigger scale. So that's kind of what it's about. And that really ties in brilliantly with what Tree Council are doing with their expo, because that's all about, you know, creating a social change in an environment where we can all share in that together. So today we're going to talk about what the workshop is, and we're going to demonstrate a couple of activities from the workshop so that you feel empowered as the teacher in the room. But as the teacher in the room, it's really important that we let you know at this point that we are expert facilitators, highly experienced trainers. And so from our point of view, you are a support in the room, and you will support us with things that you are the experts in. So for example, behaviour management, you'll support us with safeguarding, and you'll support us with classroom management. Those things are really invaluable for us to have from the teacher, because it means we can facilitate to the best of our ability and get the most out of our pupils without being distracted by the nuts and bolts of the school day. So what do we want from you? We just want you to participate in as much or as little as you want to, depending on your own confidence level. Experience teaches me that the more a teacher gets involved in the day, the more the students give. So the more the adults in the room look like they're participating and less like voyeurs, the more the students will give. But we will make you comfortable to do that. And believe me, we will always be the stupidest looking people in the room, because we will have a go at everything. So you will not be the adult in the room that's doing everything and looking foolish. That's our job. Okay. So we take you through a number of steps, and your students will get a student handbook. I'm just going to show you the front cover of it here. So it looks a little bit like this. And this is the secondary handbook. And they will use this handbook to work through the workshop. And some of the activities include the communication triangle, the top tips for speaking and listening, impromptu speaking, which is speaking on the spot. They do some feedback using a WIN formula. They tell a story and learn about the importance of anecdote and storytelling and sharing your personal experience. They learn how to plan the content of a speech, and then they deliver that speech to the best of their ability. We're very much about empowerment and confidence building. We don't want any child to feel uncomfortable. We want everyone to feel like they can stand up and speak. And so there's a lot of flexibility within the day to allow that to happen. The workshop's really cleverly designed to be incrementally building their confidence throughout the day. So the first activities in the morning might be pair-based, then group-based, then the group gets slightly bigger. And then by the end of the day, they're talking in front of the class without actually really realizing that their numbers have gone from 3 to 30. They're sort of so used to standing up and talking by then, they feel quite empowered. In fact, in the secondary schools that I've been in, they can't wait to stand up at the end and talk. So they're really excited to deliver their speeches because they've worked hard on them and they love getting that applause, which is brilliant. So as I said, the first thing that we deliver when we're in the workshop is the communication triangle. So after we've got the students to introduce themselves, we'll focus on what makes a speech. So there are three things that go into making a really good speech. We need content, which is just what goes into the speech, what we're talking about. We need to know how to deliver. So how do we stand on stage? What do we do with our arms? What do we do with our eyes? How should we use our voice? And we really break that down for them so that they realize they already know a lot of this. A lot of it is common sense. And the best way to empower them is get them to realize they have this knowledge, and then you get them to share that knowledge with you. And it's brilliant because there's a lovely symbiosis then between trainer and the group who know that we're all sharing the same thing. We're all looking for and identifying the same things in our performances. And then we look at structure, which is how a speech is put together. In the back of the book, there's a speech builder, which I'll just show you here briefly. So you can see it's sort of broken down into some little boxes. There's not much room to write, which is great because it's not a written task. It's all about speaking. And that's really good for the children in the room that might not be in the top set for English or might not be massive academic achievers. They still feel really empowered because we're not going to be marking their work. We're not collecting it in. They're just going to get up and deliver it. And that's really great because it's a brilliant leveler and really allows some students that might not always get that chance to shine to step forward and shine. So that's really important. So one of the first activities we do with the group is the top tips for public speaking. And you can see them on the screen now. There's 10 in total. And one of the things we might ask the kids to do is to think about if they could only keep 3 of the top 10 tips, what 3 would they keep? And I usually break that down into 3 different sections. So what would they keep that they would like to try and achieve themselves by the end of the day? What would they keep that they think everybody should be doing when they're up on stage? So what's like the basic that they think everyone should be trying to achieve? And then what do they like to see when they're sitting in the audience? What do they think a good performance contains? So we're just going to have a little go at that now. I'm going to pick 3 and I'm going to get Katie to pick 3. And Victoria, if you want to type your 3 in the chat, that'll be absolutely fine, because then we're getting your input as well. So I'll just stop the share when you've picked your 3. So have 60 seconds to have a quick look. What 3 would you keep? So which one would you like to do yourself? Which one do you think everyone should be doing? And which one do you like to see when you're sitting in the audience? If you can use your virtual thumbs up, Victoria, that'd be great. Then I know that you've got your 3 ready to type. Thank you, Katie. I can see yours. You're very well trained. Stop that. Thank you, Victoria. I saw yours in the chat. That's brilliant. So I've just stopped that share. So Katie, I've been talking for a few minutes now, so we're going to kick off with you. Could you tell us what your top 3 tips for speaking are?
Absolutely. So for me, I would pick, for me personally, pitch, pace, power and pause. I can rabbit on a little bit and my speed can get a little bit out of hand. And it's something that I notice that young people do quite a bit as well when they're speaking, that they can rush through just to get it over and done with initially. The one that I'd like everyone to do is project their voices, just because it's no good if we can't hear it. So making sure that we can all hear it, projecting the voices. And the third one that I picked is speaking from the heart, because I think that really engages the audience when they feel the passion and the enthusiasm and realize just from the listening to this person speak that this is something that really means something to them and is really special to them. And I think that's what sticks with an audience as well.
Thank you, Katie. So what Katie demonstrated brilliantly there, Victoria, is what the kids do. So we get them to identify their 3 and then give us the reasons why they chose them. And then they begin to realize that they know this, they know why these things work, they know why they're important. So Victoria, I'm going to get you to type while I talk, because I know that it can take a bit longer to type your tips in, and I'll tell you my 3 while you're typing. Okay, so I would pick for myself, I would probably pick keep it simple. Sometimes I can really overcomplicate things, and I'm much better if I plan and think about what I'm going to say in a kind of constructive and simple way so the audience don't get lost. I think what I would like to see from everybody is eye contact. I think it's really nice if people try and look around the room. It makes me feel special when I'm sitting in the audience, if people sometimes catch my eye. And I know kids love it when they're sitting in the audience. If you look at them, they feel like they're involved, which is really nice. And then the one that I would like to see from the audience point of view would be, I really like to see people just being themselves. So don't feel like you have to put on a performance, just feel okay about standing up and being yourself, and use your own accent, use your own voice. You don't have to be harsh, or there's no public speaking way of talking, just be yourself. That's what we all like to see. So they'd be the 3 that I would like. So Victoria, can you manage to type yours in the chat for us? That'd be brilliant.
That's one that I have noticed in when I used to do the spoken English in secondary school for English students. They lost their accent. They pretended they didn't have an accent when it came to performing their speeches, which, yeah, absolutely be yourself.
Yeah, it's very funny, isn't it? They sort of do a public speaking voice, and I'm always saying to them, you don't need to do that, just relax, be yourself. So thanks, Victoria. I can see you've got project your voice, very important, speak from the heart, and eye contact, important for the audience to feel a connection to the speaker, exclamation mark. Thank you so much. You're a very good typist. That would take me ages to type. So that's fantastic. All right, I'm going to go back to the screen and share that again for everybody. So that activity is a really good way to get them thinking for themselves, but also then I will ask them, so will some of the other trainers, to then get into little groups of 3 and have a bit of a negotiation with the other people in their group of 3 and see if they, because they'll have 9 then, 3 each, and boil those down to a collective group 3 and then redo that presentation with those 3 that they've settled on as a group. And then again, without even really thinking about it, they're always talking, they're always standing up and presenting, but they're such tiny presentations they don't realize. And then when you say to them at the end, but you've already stood up 5 times today, they suddenly realize, oh yeah, I have, and I was fine, nothing bad happened. So it's a really nice way of getting them involved without them realizing it. There's a lot of sneakiness going on. One of the things that's really important at the workshop is being able to give and receive feedback. So we're going to do an activity in a second, and I'm going to get Katie to do the activity, Victoria, because it's really difficult to do this activity typing. But I think what I'd like you to do, Victoria, because you can type this, is the feedback. So I'd like you to think about Katie's performance in a second, and I want you to type in something that you thought was wonderful about her performance. So what did she do that was great? And you can use those top 10 tips if that helps you. You can say eye contact, she projected her voice, I thought her structure was great, she was being herself, she spoke from the heart, anything that you can use from those top tips. Then I'd like you to give her something that you thought she could improve. And that's really hard when we're watching adults, because in this Zoom area, most people don't really need improvements because we're not on stage, so it's quite hard, but just make one up if you can't think of one. And then something that you notice that's really nice about Katie and the thing that she's saying. So if that's okay, Victoria, we're going to get you to do the feedback. And we use this feedback structure with all of the students when they participate in speaking on the spot. So you can see in speaking on the spot, we'll get them into small groups, and we'll ask them questions that they won't have heard of, and they have to answer them on the spot without having any time to prepare or plan. So one of the things we do is we get them to think of examples in their life now where they speak without planning what they're going to say. And that takes the fear out of it a bit when they realize chatting to their friends, making excuses, telling fibs, having an argument, all those things are things that they do naturally without thinking, just speaking on the spot. And in general, teenagers are brilliant at it. So we just say, well, look, you can do this. All we're going to do is we're going to structure it a little bit so that you can really talk about your passion without feeling like you're waffling. So that's what we do. So you can see the tips for speaking on the spot on the screen. Pause is super important. So don't start speaking until you're ready. Repeat the question if it's helpful, and young people in particular find that technique really useful. Commit to the answer, so try not to apologize or say, oh, sorry, can I start again? Or, oh no, actually, I don't think that, I've changed my mind. Just commit to the answer and let your brain help you out and find those reasons. Trust yourself. And then conclude with purpose. We try to avoid students saying things like in conclusion, or at the end of their answer suddenly shrugging their shoulders and go, oh yeah, that's it, I finished. We want them to try and think about, how do you conclude with just using your voice? So if we slow our voices down and drop the tone of our voice, the audience will know we're finished. So we try and get them already to start thinking about tone, thinking about how we can use our voice to show an audience or take an audience on a journey. The PEP structure is brilliant, and it's also in those workbooks that they've got. So all of this is in their workbooks, and it's also in the teacher pack on the schedule that you'll have. So you have all this information as well. So don't worry if it feels like the slides are going really quickly. PEP is really simple, and Katie was at our little teacher training session yesterday, so she's probably a bit of an expert now. So the first thing you do is just state your position. So maybe repeat the question and then tell us what you think, or tell us what you would do, or tell us how you feel or what you believe, and then tell us why. So then you're going to explain. So tell us why. And usually in my workshops, I ask for secondary, I ask the students to give me 3 reasons why. And then if they give me more than 3 reasons, I usually bring something with me like stickers or maybe biscuits or sweets or something like that. And they get a little prize if they can give me more than 3 reasons why. They have to be good reasons though. And then at the end, they just restate their answer. So they go back to the beginning and say, and that's why I think, or that's what I would do if. And they're learning how to build a circular answer, which gives them a lot of confidence because they've got a structure, so they don't have to worry about floundering about. But it's also really nice for an audience to feel, oh, that was really nicely concluded, and I understand what they're trying to say. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now so that I can ask Katie a question and so that you can type your feedback into the chat, Victoria. So a couple of things that that Katie's doing well would be brilliant, Victoria, and then something you think she'd like to improve, and then something that you notice about her. And Katie, you're brilliant at this, so I might get you to do 2 so that we can just get 2 totally different ones.
That's absolutely fine.
Lovely. So these are sample questions taken from the secondary school workbook, Victoria, just so you're aware. In some of the workshops, we'll use these sample questions. Also, something I like to do with the teenagers, though, is ask them to suggest some questions. So I usually give out post-it notes and get them to write questions of their own, and then I'll collect them in, and I might put my hand in a hat and choose one of their questions. And they're all nature and environment and climate change focused. Okay, so let's start, Katie. Can you please tell us, why do you think trees are good for your health and well-being?
I think trees are good for your health and well-being because they provide a calm and relaxing environment. They provide a place where you can stop and take a breath, gather your thoughts, and they give this relaxing atmosphere to anybody who walks through them. It means that they're also a great place to read, to do a bit of work, and just to get away from it all. So that's why I think that trees are good for your health. I've forgotten if that was a question.
No, that is the question. And well-being.
And well-being.
Very good, very good. I really am putting you on the spot because we've got other people to use. I think you did brilliant.
I just started gazing out the window and lost myself.
Looking at the trees, no doubt.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so I thought you did a brilliant job. So Victoria, have you got any feedback there for Katie?
Sure. Don't hold back, Victoria, please feel free.
So just something you think she's doing well. Excellent, look at that. Clear speech courses.
Organised feedback.
Yes, that's very true. Yeah, I think it's really nice.
Notes.
I think that good use of PEP is really good, and students that do that in the workshop, I always pick it out, and I always try and reinforce that. Try and stick to the structure, because the PEP structure is actually a sort of slightly miniature version of the speech structure that we then go on to use later in the workshop. So the more they can get used to speaking in a coherent structure, the easier they find the task at the end. So to highlight their good use of PEP is fantastic. All right, Katie, I'm going to hit you with another one.
Go for it.
Okay, let's do, this is quite a nice one. Let's do a nice one. You can just use you can be wistful on this one. Do you prefer the mountains or the sea, and why?
That's a very good question. I would say that I prefer the mountains because I feel that they've got a more varied terrain and can have winding rivers and streams through them. They could be covered in forest and trees. But I also feel that when you reach the top of a mountain, you feel a sense of accomplishment, and you also have an outlook over all of the landscape in front of you. So you get to sample it all. So that's why I would say I prefer mountains to seas.
Lovely. That's a lovely answer.
Although I do live by the sea, so I probably just went out of loyalty.
I think we always hanker after the thing we don't have on the end of our doorstep, probably.
That's true.
Okay, Victoria, over to you. And that's beautifully written feedback on the last one, by the way. I love that it's broken down into W, I, and N. Very good.
I felt good just seeing the word win on the screen there. So
yeah. Speaking from the heart, same as last time. That's lovely, Victoria. Thank you so much. And I know that your camera and mic isn't working, but I hope you're getting a rough idea here of how these activities work in practice. So that activity is usually done in groups of kind of 4, and all the children in the small groups will stand up at the same time. The question will be asked, and let's say there's 6 or 7 groups, you'll have 7 voices talking at the same time, but all to their little miniature audience. Then they sit down, they get their feedback, and the next person gets up. And then at the end, when everyone's done a couple like that and they've built their confidence, I then usually ask for volunteers who'd like to have a go in front of the class. And there's always a couple that will participate. And once you get a couple up, then someone else will say, I'll have a go as well then, and I'll have a go as well then. And then so that exercise is really lovely because it really kind of develops their confidence. And also they feel, funnily enough, they feel less pressure speaking on the spot, because they sort of know it doesn't have to be perfect. And sometimes with the speeches, they get quite anxious about it being perfect. But I stress all the way through the day that I'm only looking for potential. We're never looking for perfection. We just want you to be yourselves and show us your potential. That's it. Perfection is something that is unattainable. No one's perfect. We're all human. So just be yourself and have a go. So one of the other activities that we do in the workshop, which is a really important part of speech making, is telling a story. I'm going to show you, Victoria, the story structure that we use with the students so you can get an idea of what it looks like. And this is directly lifted out of the book. So you can see a bit like the speech structure that I showed you earlier for the final speech. There isn't very much room to write. We usually encourage people just to make a few notes if they want to. And at the storytelling part, if they don't want to write anything, they don't have to. If they just want to sit there and plan it in their head, that's fine too. The groups that are usually 4 for the impromptu speaking will then be made slightly bigger. So we might join a couple of groups together and those groups of 4 become 8. So we're building the audience without them really thinking about it. So suddenly they're talking in front of 8 people instead of 4. Give them a little bit of time to prepare. And one of the things we ask them is, can the story be set, please, in nature or outside, or be a story to do with the environment, or be a story to do with a holiday that you had, or a time that you went on a picnic, or a time you saw a river for the first time, or a bird's nest, or anything to do with nature. And it doesn't really matter what that is. We're very alive to the socioeconomic demographic of the pupils that we'll have, because we go all over the country with these workshops, and all over the country can be very different depending where you go and what the need is. So we'll have a little chat to the teacher and see how many pupil premium are in there and what kind of requirements are, because we don't want to start telling stories about the time we climbed Kilimanjaro if it's not going to mean anything to a group of 13-year-olds whose experience of outside is their local park. So it's really important that trainers are alive to that. And also we'll usually ask the teacher in the room, so be prepared, Victoria, to tell us a story as well. So that both the adults share a story and walk the walk as well as talk the talk. So in order to help you out with this, Katie and I are going to tell you a story. I'm going to get Katie to go first. You didn't tell one yesterday, actually, Katie.
I did. I told it. I did this one. I didn't do the. I didn't do the PEP answering questions on the spot.
Oh, that's right. You did the story, but not the PEP. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So you can't tell me the same story.
Oh no.
No, you can if you want. You can if you want.
That's a trick.
So with a story, Victoria, what we're looking for is for the students just to be authentic, be honest, tell a story that's true. That's really important. Doesn't have to be about them. Could be about granny or granddad or mum and dad or their best friend. Just a story that's true. And at the end of the story, we like them to say, and the moral of my story is, or the thing I learned from that is. So they're starting to think about messages, because we're trying to build messages into their speech at the end. So I'm going to stop this share so that we can listen to Katie and see her up close. All right, Katie, take it away.
Have you ever felt like you've been lost in nature? When I was younger, I used to go on holiday in a caravan for our summer holidays, and we'd often go to France and different parts of England. And one summer we were on holiday in France, and me and my friends decided that we were going to venture into the woodland on the edge of the campsite. There was a clear path through the trees into the woodland, and we lay on the ground for a while, just looking up at the sky through the trees. And it was really beautiful and incredibly peaceful. Now, 2 of my friends went back the way we came, but me and another girl decided we were going to find a different way out of the woodland. So we set off in the direction of light, assuming that would take us to the edge of the woodland and back to the campsite. But when we reached there, we realised we were completely surrounded by brambles, and that didn't seem a path that we could leave by. So we tried to find our way back to the original path. Unfortunately, we couldn't find it. All we could find everywhere we turned was a sea of brambles reaching to the fence that bordered onto the campsite. Now, at that point, nature seems to be creating problems for me. In fact, we started to get a bit scared. So we screamed, and we screamed, and we screamed at the top of our voices. And pretty soon I saw my dad running through the brambles in his bare feet after hearing our screams and carrying us back out again. And at the time I thought nature was absolutely terrifying, but do you know what? After I'd wiped the tears off my face and got myself together, the first thing I wanted to do was go back into the woodland and find my own way out without needing my dad for help.
Lovely story. How old were you?
I think I was probably about 9. something
Probably
like that.
about 9.
The kind
I
of
think
age
what-
where you think that you are very mature and very independent and can do your own thing, but actually maybe need
what you
a bit of help.
noticed about that story, Victoria, probably is the structure. So there was a nice rhetorical question at the beginning. Have you ever got lost in nature? And then I really feel like Katie painted the picture, but she didn't start her story with, so basically I was, and I find that primary children don't do that so much, but secondary do. So I make a real effort to kind of say, please don't start your story. So basically I was in the park, and because we don't need the so basicallys. And I also, I'm quite hot on like, let's try not to use so like this, like that, like the other, and try and really think about them thinking about the essence of their story and painting those pictures, and really thinking about hooking us in at the beginning with some kind of question, or maybe painting an image in our heads, and then just a little message at the end that's nice and clear. So you might want to get your thinking cap on too, Victoria, for your actual workshop, because you'll be asked to tell a story. Okay, I'm going to tell a very short story too. Mine's not as pretty as yours, I don't think, Katie. When I was 7, I was on holiday in Ireland, in rural Ireland on the west coast, which is where my family come from. And I decided that I didn't want to sleep in the house. I didn't want to sleep in the house on the farm. I wanted to sleep in a tent outside, but my mum and dad wouldn't let me do this on my own. They insisted that my cousin Dougal came with me. So Dougal and I pitched our tent, an old 1970s canvas tent, like the kind that makes a triangle when it stands up, with a wooden tent pole that held it up. Yes, very old. And we pitched our tent and we were very excited. We weren't allowed a campfire because we were only 7, but we were allowed some marshmallows. So we ate a lot of marshmallows. We also ate some biscuits, and we drank some hot tea that my mother had put in a flask. And then we decided to snuggle down for the night and go to sleep. We were very excited and very pleased with ourselves for being out in the dark, in a field by ourselves. Well, the night passed with absolutely no problem at all. No ghosts, no ghouls, no strange noises that go bump and make you wake up and start, no odd little scratchings on the tent, nothing at all. So in the morning, we could feel the sunrise coming through the orange of the canvas, and we were feeling pretty smug. We sat up together, stretching and yawning, and looked at the opening of the tent, which we had forgotten to zip the night before. And there, peering at us, whole head, ears, the whole lot, was an enormous cow. Her tongue was hanging out, saliva was dripping onto the feet of our sleeping bags, and she was snorting like this. And we screamed. Well, I don't know who was more scared, us or the cow, because the cow backed out of the tent at about 1,000,000 miles an hour and stumbled away at these 2 children that were screaming. And I learned that day that always, always remember to close your zip when you go camping, because not everything that happens in camping happens at night when you think it might. Some things can happen in the quiet of the morning. Okay, so that's my
That was fab. I love the actions that you did with yours, and the message at the end, the lesson to take away from it.
The lesson to take away, a nice practical lesson. So lessons can be anything. They can be things about that are life lessons. They can be really practical lessons. And sometimes I might just tell a story about a time I was at a playground, so that the kids have, can find that story and can think about their own story. And then they get some time to prepare. And when they've prepared their story, they share it with that slightly larger audience of 8. And then at the end of that, this is specifically for secondary children. So at the end of that, we'll get them then to decide as a group on the best 2 stories they heard, and they'll nominate those people to stand up and share their story with everybody. So we all get to hear a couple of stories. And that's one of the other activities we do. I'm going to go back to sharing my screen for you. So one of the things that we find in secondary workshops that the kids sometimes struggle with is then we get down to the nuts and bolts of making that speech, and they wonder, I don't know what to talk about. I can't think what to talk about. So we do a whole topic generator exercise with the kids. So they're in their groups of 8 and they stay in those groups, and we'll pose them some different questions. So we'll talk about the different purposes of why we stand up and speak. So we stand up and speak to entertain, to inspire, to inform, to persuade, or to share something personal. And sometimes it can be a combination of those 2 things. So the first thing I'll usually get them to do is to decide, what do they want to do when they stand up? Do they want to stand up and purely entertain us? Do they want to stand up and share some information? Do they want to stand up and tell us a story that turns into a speech? Do they want to persuade us to take a certain type of action? And once they know what the purpose of their speech is, it really helps them narrow down their topic. So then I'll get a flip chart, or I'll get the board, or just write it on a piece of paper if we're outside, and I'll get them to have 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes in their group to mind map as many topics as they can think of. So what do they like doing? What do they hate doing? What's their favorite animal? What's their least favorite thing to do? Why do they think nature's important? I'll just fire lots of questions at them, and they'll mind map lots of different things. And then we'll do a share. So we'll do a whole class share where they'll shout out all the different things they think would make a good speech about nature or speaking up for trees, and we'll write them all up so that everyone can see them, or I'll write them on a piece of A4 paper if we're outside so that everyone can come and have a look. And then from that, we'll start narrowing down what each individual child is going to talk about. What we usually find is there's usually about half and half. It's a 50-50 process. By this stage of the workshop, they'll have done a lot of activities, and a lot of them will have answered questions that might lead them to think about what they're going to talk about later. And usually 50% will say, yeah, I know what I'm going to talk about. And then there'll be 50% that are a bit lost. But your trainer is on hand to make sure that everybody has a speech at the end of the day. So there's nothing to worry about. It's not usually that kids can't find a topic. It's just that the nerves have started kicking in at this point, and they almost kind of back away from topics because they're worried then, oh my God, I have to actually speak. So it's about finding that thing that they feel comfortable talking about. So that's what we do. Then they stand up and deliver their speech. And that is the competition part. So in your teacher's pack, at the back of your teacher's pack, you will have a judging form, and it's broken down just like that communication triangle at the start. So it's broken down into content, delivery, and structure. And there are 20 marks for each, and you can mark them out of 20, or you can just write the child's name down and maybe make some notes. I'm doing that coughing thing again. This happened to me yesterday, Victoria. Excuse me, I don't know why I get to that point. But if you prefer the marking because it helps you, we're just looking for how good was their content, what kind of delivery did they manage, and did they use the structure that we taught them? And the trainer will be on hand to help you do that. And you'll pick 5 students at the end of the day in collaboration with your trainer, and those 5 will go forward then to present their speeches again at an in-school event. And that's kind of up to you how you run that. We would recommend an assembly or some such kind of event where the whole school is there, or a whole year group is there in a secondary setting, and they can stand up and re-deliver the speeches. So in the class, if they've only delivered 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, that's all we expect them to do at the assembly as well. But for the final expo, I'm sure there's some flexibility there around time in terms of, but Katie can fill you in on that. And then how to support them before the competition and before you decide which one you're going to choose. So you choose one out of those 5 after they've presented, and that's the one that will have their speech filmed and uploaded, and also have the opportunity to go forward. And the best way to support that student is just encouragement and praise. I mean, I haven't met a teacher yet who doesn't know how to encourage and praise a student or support them. The teachers that we work with on all of our programs are just incredible. They do the most incredible work, because we come in for a day and then we go, and actually all the nuts and bolts of what happens after that is down to you, is down to the teacher. And all of the lead teachers that we work with have been phenomenal over the years, and they know their students really well. So that's it. So now we've got an opportunity for you to ask some questions. And I know you're typing, but if you want to ask some questions, that's fine. Or if you want to maybe type that you'd rather have a separate conversation with Katie at some point, if it's particular to that. So if you've got any workshop questions, this is probably your chance to ask me, Victoria, because I'm not sure I will be available to be contacted by you.
Yeah, I'll just mention a couple of things there, Jenny, if you don't mind. So that in terms of the logistics of the day itself, Victoria, it will be a full day, and it will follow the school day within your school. So the pupils will go on break when it's break time, lunch when it's lunchtime. It can be a class, so it might be a year 8 class, a year 9 class. It could be a mixture of pupils. So sometimes pupils have eco teams or school council, or a group of pupils of 20 or so pupils who form a group for a different reason. You might have a debate club or a public speaking club in school, and they may be the pupils that you select. Ideally, it'd be great if they've been involved in some of your project, your Young Tree Champions project, and are familiar with it, and therefore have an interest in this topic. And those pupils will work throughout the day, and then at the end of it, as Jenny's mentioned, there will be some judging, which doesn't have to be explicitly done. It might just be a case of you or another member of staff in there is kind of quietly making some notes, and nobody knows that they're scored. And you select 5 pupils on the day who will get a certificate to say that they have been picked as the 5 for the day. And it doesn't necessarily have to be the 5 who've got the highest points. It might be someone who was extremely nervous and self-conscious and shy at the start, and has really built their confidence throughout the day, and really kind of taken a leap of faith and being brave on the day. So once you've got those 5 people, that's where the workshop ends. That's where the day ends, at the end of the school day, and your 5 might present. Some schools have had them present to SLT or to the head teacher or to an assembly or to a year group, whichever way it works, to select your one that gets entered for the competition. Now, I'll be sending out an email MailChimp a newsletter about the competition launching, which is going to launch this week. So it'll launch tomorrow before Easter, and it will have information on there about the competition itself, about how you enter. It's done via a Cognito form, the same way that Young Tree Champions was applied for. And it's a very, very short form to enter a pupil, but it's a case of uploading a video of their 90-second speech. So once you've got that winner, then, and they've done it a couple of times by that point, and they might have had an additional little practice, then you will record them and upload that for the national competition. And you can go onto our website. I will share the link, and there are some amazing entries that are on there. So you'll see the winners for each category. So we have it in age categories. You'll see the winners for each category, and honestly, they're really impressive. But it's amazing how much your pupils can transform throughout the day of the workshop, and pupils who you think will be really shy will absolutely pull it out of the bag. So we hope that will be the case in your school. Victoria, am I right in thinking that you're Wellfield? Is that correct? Have I got the right school there? Hopefully I have. I'm trying to remember names and match some schools. Yes, fabulous. I don't think, if I'm correct, I don't think that I have a date confirmed for your school yet. Do you know whether you have confirmed a date yet with Speakers Trust? I'm not sure if the communications will be going to you or to another contact at your school, because I think we've got another contact on the spreadsheet. But at the minute, I'm not aware of a date being confirmed. All right, okay. Fantastic. That's absolutely fine. I just wanted to make sure that we hadn't kind of got that lost in the ether and you were expecting people to turn up on a certain date. That's absolutely fine. When you do have that date, please do send that through. I'll make sure that Speakers Trust do know that you are definitely wanting a visit and are just waiting to get that date confirmed. And once that's happened, your facilitator will get in touch. Jenny is not travelling to every school in the country for us. No. That might be quite a few miles.
There's a small group of trainers who work on this project, Victoria, and once we know, so Speakers Trust contact us, and then we know which school we've got, then we'll get in touch with you and we'll tell you what we need. It's usually just timings of the school day, where do we park, have you got an outdoor classroom or somewhere outside that we can do the workshop? That is our preference, particularly for this project. If that's absolutely completely unavailable to you, that's okay. That doesn't mean you can't do it. Then we just need one room for the whole day with the chairs and tables pushed to the side so that we can move around and use the space.
I know that I went to a workshop in a primary school in Hartlepool recently, and they started the day outside, but the elements did fight against us a little bit. So they did part of the workshop outside and then moved into a classroom for the second half of it. So it's how it works best on the day and for your school setting as well. Do you have any other questions, Victoria, for us, or have we covered everything off?
It's so much information, isn't it?
I know.
I'm brilliantly, Victoria. I feel like you've been machine gunned for the last hour.
I had originally said by the end of this week, Victoria, if that is at all possible, but I am fully aware that everyone's cramming everything in for the last days of the term, so that might not be possible. But I will let Speakers Trust know that you are definitely wanting to go ahead, but you're just waiting for that date to be confirmed. The sooner the better. If it can be within the first week back or by the end of the first week back, that would be fantastic. Just let us know. If needs be, just drop us an email to say, yes, we're still working it out. We haven't quite got that date pinpointed yet. We do have the competition the competition ends at the end of May. That's when the submission deadline is. I think it's the 30th of May, with the festival, with the expo taking place in June. So we would need to work into the date into that time frame to make sure that you've got time to enter your pupils for that competition. Well, thank you very much for joining us, and we do really appreciate it, and all the typing that you've done as a result of your not having that microphone in that video. So we do really appreciate that, your continued contribution with those technological issues going on there. So thank you for that, and we do hope it's been useful. And if you have any other questions, if there's any issues with arranging things or anything like that, please do feel free to drop us an email on schools@treecouncil.org.uk, or your main contact who filled in the YTC application can drop me an email as well, because I know that she's got my direct email. So thank you, Victoria. That's much appreciated. And thank you to anybody who is watching the recording at home as well.
Thank you, everyone.